Morning everyone, it's Saturday and it's me Michael, it's Sheffield Hospital Radio, so it's my Saturday soundtrack. Thank you to Paul for the last few hours for his fantastic show, and thank you for joining me for these next couple of hours. Strap yourselves in. I'm going to be soundtracking your Saturday morning, and whether you're a patient on one of our wards, a member of staff working across some of our sites or out in the community, or maybe you're a member of staff that's enjoying a well-earned rest and the weekend off after a busy week, or maybe you're just listening online. Thank you for joining me. I do appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to soundtracking your Saturday. And coming up on today's show, it's another fantastic show because it's the best kind of show, and I've got two guests with me. And this week I've got Emma, who's our Voluntary Services Manager, and Chris, who's our Volunteer Coordinator. Morning both.
Good morning.
Hello, excited to be here.
Brilliant. Well, we're going to be hearing more from them because this week is National Volunteers Week, so we're going to be hearing all from them throughout the show and everything that our fantastic volunteers do across our services. So let's start though. If you want to pick the songs today, you know you can email me studio@sheffieldhospitalradio.co.uk or WhatsApp 07900 339 429. I'd love for you to pick a song, but the first one is from our volunteers who've been out and about at the Northern General this week, as they always do, seeking requests, and they've spoken to Grace, who's a member of staff, and she's asked for this fantastic song over at Firth 7. She's asked for Dancing Queen, coming up for you now. Grace, welcome. Emma and Chris, as part of our volunteers team. I'm really pleased that you've joined us in the show. I've put my gold jacket on for you coming today. We'll talk a bit later about the volunteers event last night. But to help us get into it, give us a bit of a story about the impact that volunteers have on our patients over across our Sheffield Teaching Hospitals.
Hi, good morning, Michael. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. It's Emma here, Voluntary Services Manager. Well, volunteers have interactions every day with people that just make their experience of coming into hospital better. But I think the best stories come when those interactions are repeated over time. So I can think of a few examples where somebody's coming in for regular appointments or coming in regularly to visit a loved one, and they're seeing the same volunteer each time, and they build up a real relationship with them, and they talk to them and they get to know them, and I think they then look for that volunteer when they're coming in, and it just makes the whole experience of having to come into hospital just so much more relaxed and so much better.
And I imagine coming to hospital, well, I know we've all unfortunately done it. It is quite stressful. You're having to park, you're having to get there on time, you're worried about what conversation you're going to have. So I presume the volunteers offer that smiley face at the front door to guide you, to say hello, as you say, to have a bit of human interaction.
Yeah, that's right. They're there to welcome people. It can be really stressful. Our hospitals are large and complicated. It can be really stressful finding out where to go. So just to take that off people and just have that friendly face to show them where to go. And the extra assistance as well, you know, if they need to have a taxi call to get home, or if they need to find a wheelchair to help them to get to where they're going, just all those little things just make that trip to hospital less anxiety inducing, I suppose.
Absolutely. And Chris, if I bring you in, if that's okay, tell us about your experience. What stories have you got about some of our volunteers that you've seen over the years?
I'm always so amazed when I walk into the hospital at the start of the day, to be honest, watching volunteers greet people that they recognise from times before, or saying hello to people as they leave, and it's really... I think it's like a really reassuring thing for people that come to the hospital to have that kind of touching base with someone when they arrive and when they leave. So I really would like repeat what Emma said there. But a thing that happens for me is that quite often we get sort of phone calls from patients that are a bit lonely or a bit bored on the wards, and being able to send or they can call a volunteer, and that volunteer can go and sort of keep them company. And we've had feedback quite a lot that's like made a real difference when someone's feeling quite low, and I really appreciate that.
So you can dispatch volunteers out across the organisation?
Exactly.
Wow, I didn't know that. Well, I want to find out about all the different roles, because you've you've touched on one element of volunteering there, but I know we've got lots of different roles. So let's talk about those shortly. But you've come with a whole list of songs and some CDs, which is absolutely fantastic. So that's brilliant. And Chris, you're going to tell us about this first song, which one of our volunteers, Keith, also suggested we played for you, and he wanted to say a massive thank you. He's a volunteer welcomer at the Hallamshire. But tell us why you've picked this song, Chris.
So next up we're having, with a little help from our friends from the Beatles, and my real memory of this is my dad having it on CD in a caravan and jumping around, and it's skipping a lot, but we still really enjoyed it.
Brilliant. Well, feel free to jump around. It's a digital version, so you can dance along at it here in the studio. And let's talk about next some of those different roles of volunteers have. Brilliant. Thanks both. With a little help from my friends from the Beatles there, and jumping around from Chris in the studio. Good dancing, Chris. So if you've only just joined us, we've got Chris and Emma who support our volunteers, and so I want to find out, we heard a bit about some of the stories of our volunteers, but what are the fantastic things and different types of volunteers? So is it true that one of our volunteers is a dog?
That is true. We've got actually quite a few pets as therapy volunteers. So they come in with their dogs, and it's like amazing watching them walk down the wards and the corridors and all the different clinics and things like that. And the reaction we get from patients is amazing. But the thing that always sticks in my mind is the reaction we get from staff, who are just so happy to see a dog while they're working their shift, and it's just like really brightens people's moods. So I'm so appreciative of all the pets as therapy volunteers that we have. Yeah.
And so I presume that's about patients while they're here having that opportunity for therapy to pet the dog, stroke the dog if they want to, and that goes out clinics, wards, it goes all across the hospital.
Absolutely, yeah.
Wow.
And it's really, really nice, and like just improves people's mood, and that can like have a real difference on someone's like experience.
And so tell us, so we heard about some of the welcomers. Emma, tell us, what are the other roles? Because I understand you've got tens of different types of roles across our volunteers.
Yeah, I think we've got closer to about 50 different roles. Yeah. So as well as our welcomer volunteers, we have active response volunteers. They're the ones we alluded to earlier.
So tell us about those. What are they?
So they're kind of on-call volunteers and available to help departments in whatever way they see fit. So in a typical shift, they might be called upon to move some medical records, to sit with a patient, as Chris said, and provide some companionship, maybe play a game. They might be asked to pop to pharmacy or to labs with some samples, or to pick up some medication. They might help with a meal service, perhaps help a ward to take the meal choices from patients. They often help us with patient surveys as well, when we're wanting some feedback for different departments to help improve our services. So it's a really varied role, they keep busy.
And what's when you're kind of talking to friends and family about your role, what's the kind of, out of those 50 roles, what's the role that you kind of describe there that volunteers are like, gosh, do we really have that? That's an unusual role in the volunteers?
That's a good question. I suppose people are interested to hear about ward activities volunteers, and the fact that we've actually got I think people think that perhaps hospital volunteering is just about making cups of tea and things like that, but actually we've got volunteers who are quite interactive and engaged with patients. So we've got volunteers, ward activities volunteers, who actually do arts and crafts with patients. They read to patients. They're embedded in different departments like spinal injuries and our stroke rehabilitation centre with the activities coordinators there, and really helping with different activities that actually help with someone's recovery as well, might help with dexterity or whatever it is.
And on that, because I was fortunate to attend the volunteer celebration event that you held last night, and there was a couple of groups that you introduced there that I didn't know we had. So one was around the cardiac, and was that heart rehab? Was there the kind of the group of guys? Was it shock? So, yeah.
Yeah, so we have, as well as the volunteers that we recruit and look after, we have different voluntary partnerships.
Okay,
so sometimes there's other organisations or charities that use volunteers in the hospital. And in fact, yourself being a volunteer here at Hospital Radio is a charity in its own right. So it's one of our voluntary partnerships. The one you're mentioning is called Sheffield Open Heart Club, or SHOCK. And these are all people who've had heart surgery, and they come in and provide peer support to people who are going to have heart surgery. And that makes a massive difference to people, having that reassurance before their surgery that things can turn out okay and they can come through this makes a massive difference.
And then what felt like at the other end of the scale, and I've got the sexual health team coming on, our community and acute-based team coming on in a few weeks' time. There are a number of volunteers that were kind of peer mentors, I think they were described as.
Yeah, sexual health peer mentors. They're an amazing group. They go out into communities for the sexual health team to different events, promote safer sex messaging, signposting to different services, giving out packs and information. And they've reached, I think last year they reached over 9,000 people with their activities.
That's amazing. So how many volunteers do we have, do you know, across Sheffield Hospitals at the moment, Chris?
Yeah, we've got roughly 389 volunteers, and they've given more than 26,000 hours of their time supporting over 134,000 people across 116 departments, which is just like loads. And it is a really sort of inspiring. I feel really lucky to work with volunteers because they are just all so enthusiastic when they're there, and that's really wonderful. Yeah.
That is just amazing. Well, let's talk about some of that impact a bit later, but that is great to hear. I've got another request I'm going to play now. So this is for Sarah. It's her birthday today. Her message said that she's 39 again. So here's a song for Sarah. Many happy returns. Happy birthday, Sarah. So if this is the first time you've tuned into Sheffield Hospital Radio, did you know that we broadcast 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it is our wonderful volunteers that are providing about 12 or 13 live shows across that week. You can tune in. Go to the Sheffield Hospital website, www.sheffieldhospitalradio.co.uk, to find out which shows are on, and that's where you can listen live throughout the week. So let's go to another song. And Chris and Emma, we've had a message in from Alison, who I think is one of our fantastic volunteers at the Hallamshire.
Hi, Alison.
Regular listener and contributor. She was picking songs for Kate Botley last week when Reverend Kate Botley off the telly was on, and she just wanted to say what a fantastic night she had last night at the volunteers, and a massive thank you for all that you've done there. And between her and Keith, they suggested this next song for you, Chris. Now, she said it's for the cycling, but I think you came on your bike today, but are you a climber as well?
I absolutely am. Thank you very much, Alison.
Do you want to introduce the song, one of you?
So the next song we've got is Ain't No River Deep, Mountain High, and it really does relate to climbing, and I love it. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. That was Tom's Diner with a bit of a cappella from Emma and Chris there. Tell us, why did you pick that song? It's clearly something you sing a lot, is it?
It's a little bit of a running theme in our office because inexplicably, almost every time we're in the office together, I find Chris singing and then it gets in my head as well, and yeah, it's just become a bit of a running joke.
Bit of an earworm as well, and that's what we like on this show for soundtracking our Saturdays. So if you've only just joined in, I've got Chris and Emma there with me. They head up our volunteering team here at Sheffield Teaching Hospitals. So tell us a bit more. We've found out about the jobs that they do, but how important do you think volunteers are for our Sheffield Teaching Hospitals and acute services, Chris?
I think volunteers are really important, and I think that's sort of, you notice it in the way that staff and volunteers interact, and I really found that Yeah, talking to our welcomer volunteers. So Annie the other day was telling me about how busy it got on the reception and the A floor, and talking to Louise as well, who's a receptionist, and she actually nominated Annie for one of the thank you awards this year, which was really beautiful to be able to go and see that bit of recognition as well. But yeah, it gets really busy and there can be a queue of people waiting to talk to the reception, and actually some of the people queuing and waiting don't really need a receptionist. They just need someone to sit with them and sort of reassure them and like take that time to listen to their story and like be there with them. And I've found that the welcomers like Keith and Alison, who have been emailing in today, and so many others, really like do take that time and acknowledge people and like recognise their journey in the hospital, and I think it makes a really big difference. Yeah.
And what do you think it is that staff really love about what our volunteers do? Where do they get that real value from them?
I think when I hear like positive feedback from staff, it is about being able to take that time that staff obviously do as well, and they like really care about the patients and are really patient focused. But there is often like a really big demand on staff time, and they want to be putting that time into patient care and like recognition of patients. But sometimes they just have to pass that on, and like it's really really nice to have a volunteer there who's able to sort of like take up that bit of the thing that's important.
And why are volunteers important for our patients, do you think, Emma? We've heard from the staff perspective there. What's that? We've heard both. What's your view on the importance of volunteers?
I think it's the same thing, but the other way around, really, in that our staff are absolutely amazing, and they need to obviously spend time doing the things that they need to be doing. And I'm sure they wish they had more time to just sit and talk and recognise the individuality of patients, but they don't always, and so I think they appreciate the volunteers coming in and having that bit of time. And we've got a quote here actually from a staff member from chemotherapy day case. She said, "The service the volunteers provide allows for the other staff members the time to undertake other roles essential to the safe delivery of care and be able to provide support to patients." I saw an example of that myself the other day because I went round on the book trolley with our volunteer Jack at the Northern General, and it was a really good couple of hours because we're just taking round some books and giving them out to patients, but it's not really about the books. It's about the fact that we just had that time to just chat to patients. Some of them, for example, in our Peter Moorhead facility were having their dialysis, and so we just passed a little bit of time on with them. You know, they're there for a long time, so we just passed a little bit of that time with them and talked to them about themselves and their lives and their fears and things outside of the hospital, and hopefully just distracted them a bit for a while.
And do you think then the volunteers bring a kind of a human face? I mean, we're a massive organisation. I feel really fortunate with all the staff that I get to talk to here. They're clearly very passionate, very keen to make a difference, but as you've both referred to, are also very busy in that kind of caregiving. Do you think the humans have that time, give that kind of human feel for our patients? Do you think that's where the real value lies?
Absolutely, and just spending a bit of time with any volunteer, you will recognise that sort of is a way that they're being able to express themselves and socialise. And I actually think that's something really nice to think about volunteers as well, is they're getting a lot out of it, and it's really nice to have a thing that's getting people out and doing things. A lot of volunteers tell me that it's like a real sort of keystone in their week, like a thing that they do, and that's really nice as well. So it's not just about the benefit to patients and stuff, it's also like volunteering is really good for the people volunteering, which I think you had something to say, Emma, as well.
Yeah, and socially, they make friends volunteering, and it's like you say, it's a cornerstone of their week. But then, really practically as well, we've got some schemes. We work with the Restore programme in South Yorkshire, which helps refugee nurses get into nursing over here in the UK. And some of them aren't quite ready to be taking their exams and things, and they need a little bit of confidence building and help with their English skills. So they come along and volunteer with us, and we've had quite a few of them go on to get jobs as clinical support workers, so just furthering their journey back into nursing in this country. And then our Team Impact programme for young people as well. So many of them are thinking about careers in the health service, and the experience of volunteering with us just helps to sort of crystallise the direction they want to go in.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I want to come on a bit later, probably in the second hour, to hear about how do people get involved. But you've clearly described an absolute win-win there. Win for our patients, win for our staff, and win for volunteers. But so I'd not appreciated that, the team impact and the restore. So that's obviously volunteers. They're really coming into this to get something for them to support their language kind of integration and future careers, that sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, each autumn we take on 16 to 17-year-olds in our Team Impact programme that our colleague Jane looks after. She's our project officer, and she also looks after the Restore volunteers as well. And they get placed in a real variety of areas of the hospital, so sort of like MSK outpatients or the eye centre at the Northern General or neuro outpatients. There's all sorts of different places. So that helps them get a real overview of the hospital and helps them to get experience of what's it like working in a UK NHS environment.
Yeah, that's amazing. Brilliant. Well, we'll talk a bit more. Next song's one of the ones that you picked, which is a absolute fantastic one. A bit of Bill Withers, Lean on Me. Any particular stories around this one, or clearly relates a lot to everyone looking out for themselves, or looking out for each other. Sorry, not themselves, looking out for each other across our voluntary and our staff.
That's exactly it. It's no particular story, but it just seems the perfect song to show how, as we've just described, everybody's working together here.
Bill Withers there, Lean on Me. So, Emma, tell us a bit, because I'd learned something there about just the kind of the different types of individuals that are getting into volunteering. So who are the types of people? Who becomes a volunteer?
I might take this one if that's all right.
Do, yeah.
I get asked this quite a lot when I tell people that my job is volunteer coordinating, and there's often a bit of an assumption that it's just people that have retired and things like that, and that is like a lot of our volunteers, and it's really, really nice having that cohort of people. But actually the volunteers we have are a real range. We've got all the way down to like 16-year-olds and all the way up to 88 years old, which is fantastic as well. And the sort of diversity of volunteers kind of comes from the fact that people do it for lots of different reasons, and that's really, really nice. Like some people just need a bit more experience in a hospital setting. They might have quite a lot of experience in another country, for example, working in a hospital, and they just need some NHS experience, or they might just have been out of it for a while and then they want a bit more, or they might just be starting out and they're like wanting to get into a career in sort of healthcare, and that's really nice as well to be able to support them. And it's been so amazing to be able to sort of follow people's journeys, and they come back and talk to us, and they're like full of enthusiasm about it, and that's sort of started volunteering in Sheffield Teaching Hospitals, so that's really nice. But then we also have some people that volunteer and it's just about the social aspect of it, or that's like what's drawn them into it, and that's also really wonderful. Like people that just want to be out there meeting people, and getting to do that in a hospital setting is so nice because it's doing so much good for the world as well. And also something that's really touching is we have quite a lot of volunteers that volunteer because they've had some experience either themselves or a loved one who's been in the hospital and been helped by the NHS so much, and they want to give something back, and that's right, quite beautiful and touching, really. Yeah,
that's lovely. You talk so passionately about it. So what skills do volunteers have, Emma? What skills do they come with? What skills do they bring to our staff and our patients from that real kind of breadth that Chris has described there?
Well, I think that's really interesting because volunteers come from all different backgrounds, all different countries, all different careers as well. And I think it's really important that we acknowledge and appreciate the skills that volunteers are bringing. So, for example, some of our retired volunteers have had, huge long careers, and they really bring a lot of skills, in terms of communication, organisation, and they come with a lot of ideas as well as to how to make things better as well.
And so all of those skills, all of those experiences must be great, because we're really fortunate. Our patient population is so diverse. Our patient groups are so diverse. So that must really help, does it? That kind of, not necessarily matching, but diversity of volunteer with diversity of patient, Chris?
Yeah, I think that's something that we really notice is people recognising that and getting a lot from it. Sometimes you notice that volunteers are able just to have a bit of a sort of personal connection because they've got something in common with a patient that's come into the hospital, and that is really nice and really like a helpful thing in terms of like making. I think everyone sort of has in their mind that hospitals are quite an intimidating place to go, and anything that volunteers can do to change that is really nice. It's also I find really interesting, we've talked about it a bit, the fact that people come volunteering from lots of different walks of life and they have different experiences of life. And actually, also volunteering, you get a bit more time to just sort of recognise the sort of small things that are happening in someone's time in the hospital. And if you can relate that to life experience that you've got, whether that's in a conversation or just in the approach that you take, it can be really meaningful. Yeah.
No, that's brilliant. So I imagine anybody listening now, if they were kind of thinking, am I the right type of person to be a volunteer? From what you said there, everybody is the right type of person to be a volunteer?
Definitely, yeah. We don't have any particular requirements in terms of, qualifications or experience. It's really just about your motivation. So why are you wanting to do it? Yeah. And if you're doing it because, if you're considering it because you want to support people, make the patient experience a little bit better, and if you've got the time, of course, we're looking for people who can give 3 hours a week consistently, and the same shift every week, because we're providing a service here, so it does need to be quite consistent. And we ask for people to do that for at least 6 months. So people need to really think about that and whether they can really commit to that, because obviously people have very busy lives. But if that's the case, then I would definitely recommend people look into it, and we'll be recruiting again in September.
Brilliant. Well, let's play a bit of Dolly, and then I'm going to pick up next hour exactly how people get involved in that recruitment. A bit of Dolly Barton. It's me, Michael. It's Sheffield Hospital Radio, and you're listening to my Saturday soundtrack. Now, Emma, I usually, when I don't have guests on, have a feature on my show which is a sing-along anthem, and that song would be absolutely perfect for sing-along anthem. Tell us about why you like Meat Loaf.
Meat Loaf is my favourite artist of all time, and I think, like a lot of people, my taste in music comes very much from my parents. And I just remember, a little bit like Chris's story earlier in the caravan, I just remember driving down to holidays in Cornwall and Devon when I was younger, and we'd always have a Meat Loaf cassette on and be listening to Bat Out of Hell and all that kind of thing. And I've been to see him 5 times.
Wow. And your best concert?
I once saw him do an outdoor concert at Chatsworth House, and that was really, really special.
And I imagine Meat Loaf's a great artist to have on in the car. You probably only got one tape all the way to Cornwall with the length of his songs, did you?
Probably, yeah, and really good for singing along.
Yeah.
In my car, obviously, I think I sound fantastic.
Well, and that's what Sing-Along Anthem is all about, encouraging our staff, our patients, our people listening out in the community here on Saturday Soundtrack with me, Michael, to just sing along and have fun and get up and about. And this next song, I know, is absolutely going to be perfect for that. And this has come from John, who's been in touch, and he says, could I play this song for his wife, Margaret, who's in the Northern General. I'm going to start it playing because it needs no introduction. So it is for his wife, Margaret, who's in the Northern General. She's been in hospital for a few days and could do with a smile. They're all thinking of her at home and looking forward to having her. So John, Sarah, Tom and grandchildren, Margaret, get well soon. Neil Diamond, we were singing along here. Neil Diamond there, Sweet Caroline, from John, Sarah, Tom and the grandchildren for Margaret. So if you've only just joined me, where have you been this first hour? You missed a fantastic show, but don't worry, if you want to listen again to this show or any of the other guests that I've had on my shows, you can do by going to the Facebook page of Sheffield Hospital Radio, and all my previous interviews are on there. They're a great listen. Kate Botley from last week, Carly Thompson, the haematology nurses, the A&E department. Check them out. It's great as an alternative to a podcast. But today we've got Emma and Chris with me in the studio. It's National Volunteer Week, and talking about all things volunteers and the fantastic impact that they have on our patients, on our staff, and for them as well. So Emma, I talked last week when I had Kate Botley on about the NHS Constitution talks about the NHS is here in the happiest and saddest parts of our lives, the births, the diagnosis and the deaths. Volunteers are clearly there with our patients at those times. What qualities, how does that work for our volunteers? What value do they add to our patients at those points in their lives? What examples have you got around that?
Well, it's interesting you say those different kind of key points of people's lives, because I've got a couple of examples of how volunteers are there at those times. And a fairly new role to us lately is our research volunteers, who are helping the research midwives at the Jessup maternity wing with their generation study, which is a nationwide genetic health study and requires new parents to sign up to allow their babies to take part, basically. And volunteers have been helping to promote that and helping with the whole study. And since volunteers started helping out, recruitment to that study has increased by 50%. And so that's a really great measurable impact. But the study itself, hopefully over time will actually benefit, a whole load more people as well.
And how have the volunteers been helping with that specifically, Emma?
They've been promoting the study, so by sort of giving out leaflets to new parents and explaining how it works and how they can get involved. And they've also been helping in like a more admin capacity in the office in terms of sending out packs and things like that. So it's allowed the team to do a lot more than they would have been able to.
Brilliant. And then you said a couple of examples. Was there another one you wanted to share?
Yeah, well, sort of going to the other end of the scale, really. We have volunteers in our palliative care unit who help out just generally in the unit and with patients. But a specific role there is our oral history volunteers. So we have specially trained volunteers who can offer a service whereby a patient can record their oral history and they can have it then on a CD or a USB stick or however they want it for their family then to be able to look back at. And I think patients that take part in that, it's a really sort of powerful way of kind of marking their life, really, and just making sure that it's recorded and it's not forgotten.
And so that's a volunteer sat with a patient asking them about their life and things that they want to tell their family, record for their family. I mean, that's really powerful.
Yeah, they've got specialist recording equipment. And as I say, they're specially trained. There's like a National Oral History Society, so that, they really know what they're doing. They're very sensitive. And if the patient wishes to, that recording can then go into the archive at Sheffield University. So it's actually part of like a social history.
Gosh, I wasn't aware of that. That sounds fantastic. And because we talk about being there at those kind of different parts in our life, that must be quite challenging, difficult, upsetting for some of our volunteers at times. What support do you provide for our volunteers around that, or help so that they can be sensitive and supportive at those really crucial times, Chris?
I think that's so true. I mean, I think everyone probably has a memory of having a difficult time or an emotional time when they're in hospital, and a lot of our volunteers just experience that quite directly when they're talking to patients or spending time with patients. And it can be quite upsetting, and it can be talking to someone who's really stressed or talking to someone who's really upset or low. And our volunteers are amazing in that they take that time, but that can take a toll. And I think one of the biggest things we as an organisation do to support the volunteers that we have, and that like I do day to day as well, get volunteers coming and talking to me, and it will have had an impact on them. Like, they will have experienced that, and it will have left them feeling discombobulated or just a bit uncertain. And actually just listening to someone who's in that situation, very similar to what the volunteers do actually, can be the first step in making that more manageable. And I think that's sort of a thread that runs through the whole of the NHS, is listening to people, acknowledging their stories, and taking them for what they are, and sort of recognizing them, not necessarily trying to change them or erase them. Just sort of taking that time and sitting with those emotions can be really powerful. And actually it's what helps our patients, and it's also what helps our volunteers carry on doing what they do.
And I know I'm going back to Kate Botley on our show last week, and do listen to that on Listen Again, but she talked about that kind of making a difference and how powerful she'd found in her life, and from her experience with her mum and dad here as patients at Sheffield Teaching Hospitals, just those individual conversations, those individual touch points with people had just made such a difference to her. So it sounds like, what feedback have you had about where our volunteers have really kind of touched people's lives? Did you get that feedback from our patients and staff?
Yeah, we do. It tends to come through our patient advice and liaison service, perhaps, and then they'll pass it on to us and say that they've had a really nice comment from a volunteer. I can think of one for a volunteer, one of our welcomer volunteers at the Hallamshire, Warren, who was actually just observed by a patient. So he didn't directly help this patient, but the patient was sat waiting in the outpatients area and observed Warren's actions, and actually was so impressed with the time he took with people and the respect he had for everyone and the way he treated everyone, that she actually sent in a thank you just to say, well done.
That's amazing. Well, I think this is a really appropriate song for that. Is there anything you want to say about this next song, Pretenders, and I'll Stand By You? It's one you picked. It's a lovely song.
I suppose it works really well for what we've just been talking about in terms of, you know, the volunteers are supporting patients and staff, and then hopefully we try and support them and try and support each other in the team. And so we're all standing by each other, really.
Brilliant. Lovely. Thanks, Emma. You're listening to me, Michael, on Sheffield Hospital Radio. Don't forget, if you want to pick the songs, you can email us, studio@sheffieldhospitalradio.co.uk, or WhatsApp 07900 339 429. We've got a number of requests coming in today, so we're shuffling the songs around. But you brought a CD in today, Chris, and I love having some eclectic mix on. So tell us about this song and that we're going to play next.
Thanks, yeah. So you asked me to pick some songs, and I sent an email over and was told that pretty much none of them were in the radio system, so I brought in a CD. This is my friend's band, and I really have fond memories of their first gig in someone's living room and it being really busy, so yeah.
And how big did they get? What was the biggest stage they played on, other than your living room?
I think they played the Tramlines Fringe, and that was, yeah, but it was really exciting.
And
they would probably say that's a disservice. I can't remember. They supported some other similar artists.
And name of the band?
Oh, yeah, they're Rogue Siesta, and this song is Jungle, I think.
That's correct, yeah. Here's Jungle from Rogue Siesta. So it's not quite new music, I presume, Chris, because it's been out a while, but new to Sheffield Hospital Radio, that was Rogue Siesta and Jungle. I'm joined by Emma and Chris because it's National Volunteers Week. Emma, tell us a bit about National Volunteers Week. What's it for? Yes. What's it all about?
What's it all about? So, yeah, it happens every year, obviously. National Volunteers Week. It's always the first week of June. And it's the opportunity for all organisations that involve volunteers across all the different genres. It's not just about healthcare, to say thank you to their volunteers. So people do events, people have get-togethers, people sort of maybe give out, small tokens of appreciation. What we do each year for Volunteers Week is we always have our volunteer celebration event in Volunteers Week. So we had that last night, and it's just a small gesture of thanks for what volunteers do for us every day, really. So, but we had a nice meal, and you were kind enough to bring along your jacket and draw the raffle for us. Thank you, Michael. And we had some other fun and games. So hopefully everybody enjoyed it. Also this week, please, have a look on our Facebook page, Sheffield Hospital Volunteers, because we've been releasing case studies every day from volunteers, including some of our young people and some of our refugee nurses and things like that. So some quite interesting stories there.
That's brilliant. And obviously you and Chris, your roles is to support and coordinate those volunteers. So tell us a bit about your team, who's in it, how do you work, what do you do for the volunteers? Is it just supporting the volunteers, or is there a wider trust role?
Thanks, that's a great question. We're really lucky to have volunteers across lots of different hospital sites. So I mainly do coordinating in the sort of central part of Sheffield Teaching Hospitals, but Fiona does some incredible work for all the volunteers over at the Northern General, and that's really appreciated. And then we also have Nicola, who... you talked a bit about what kind of support we offer volunteers. There's a lot of things that get forgotten that are less glamorous, to do with sort of like admin and checks and like making sure people are ready to start volunteering in the hospital. As you can imagine, that's quite a long process, and she is a real superstar in terms of making that happen and like getting people to the point where they can volunteer. And Emma already talked a little bit about sort of like the ward activities and how that's sort of integrated into the sort of like arts in hospital program that's going on all across the hospital. And we've got a really amazing member of staff, Sophie, Sophie, who does a lot to do with that, like, having those ward activities going on, having the book trolley going around. So it's really, really nice having a team of people, because we've got such an amazing team of volunteers. Yeah.
And did I pick up somewhere, was it last night, Emma, that some of the team are funded by Sheffield Hospital Charities?
Yeah, that's right. Within the volunteers team, there are a couple of roles that are trust funded, but the rest of us, including myself, are funded by Sheffield Hospitals Charities. So without their support, we wouldn't be able to do any of this, really. We wouldn't be able to have any of this volunteering activity. They fund the uniforms, the expenses of volunteers, and also I manage the Arts in Health team as well. So all of the arts provision across the trust, including for staff, including art on walls, including musicians on wards, all funded by the Sheffield Hospitals Charity. So thank you to everyone who supports them and anyone who's ever given to them or done anything for Sheffield Hospitals Charity.
No, it is brilliant. And can I say on behalf of Sheffield Teaching Hospitals, a massive thank you to you and the team. Everything you've described today about the impact that you have for our volunteers, for our patients, for our staff is fantastic. So thank you most definitely for everything that you both do. And we'll come back in a bit and share all the details so that anyone listening knows how to get involved in volunteering. But we've got a couple of requests in, so I'm going to take this one. So this has come from Jade, and Jade's asked if we can play Elton John's I'm Still Standing, and that's for her dad Brian, who's recovering after an operation. And Brian sounds quite the card. It sounds like he's been keeping the nurses entertained with his awful dad jokes. I didn't think there was such a thing as an awful dad joke. Surely they're all brilliant. And Jade says that she's incredibly proud of him and sending lots of love and best wishes for a speedy recovery. So for Brian, from his daughter Jade and wife Sandra, here's some Elton John. It's me, Michael. It's my Saturday soundtrack, and I've got Emma and Chris with me, and we've talked lots and lots about volunteers, and you touched on earlier, Emma, about how people get involved and what you're looking for in a volunteer. Clearly, we want people from all backgrounds, all experiences, all skills, but it sounded like kind of commitment and reliability were some of the key things you're looking for in our volunteers.
Yeah, it is, because it's important to the department and also to the other volunteers that we know who's coming in each week. So if you're thinking about volunteering with us, then yeah, we do really ask that you think about, can I make this a regular weekly commitment? But if that's the case, then we will be recruiting again in September.
And what does recruitment look like? What's the process that people go through?
Yeah, thanks. So I guess it is something to bear in mind if you're thinking about volunteering in the hospital. It is a bit of a process from the point at which you apply to the point at which you actually start volunteering. So we do a recruitment event where you find out a little bit more about volunteering. So that would follow on shortly after sort of registering your interest in September. And then we'd sort of meet with you one-to-one and talk to you a bit about like what kind of role is going to work well for you in the hospital. Then you would have to do a little bit of training, and there is also quite a few different checks and things that we have to have in place before you can start, and that's just because obviously volunteering in the hospital is quite a significant thing, and we can't just have anyone just start doing it immediately. So bearing that sort of slightly longer process in mind, it is worth really thinking about, like, do I want to go through that process, and at the end of it, will I still be able to commit to volunteering once a week for sort of 3 hours, and will I be able to do it for 6 months? So yeah, we're not saying that just to put people off. It's just that it's really good both from the point of view of not wasting your time and not wasting our time, that we have a really good understanding of like, this is what it's going to involve, and that you're ready to like go through it. And I would really encourage people to do it, but it's just something to bear in mind. Yeah.
And that commitment does sound important. Everything we've talked about today about you're around vulnerable patients, people who are experiencing potentially difficult, life-changing conversations around their clinical pathway. So that training's important, that support, and as you say, that kind of consistency. So just so we're clear, so the requirement is, was it 3 hours minimum of 3 hours a week, once a week over 6 months is that commitment, and then clearly that training piece beforehand?
That's absolutely right. There are a few exceptions to that. For example, therapy dog volunteers volunteer a bit less than that, because obviously it's down to how long the therapy dog can be in the hospital, and some other specific roles that work a bit differently. But on the whole, we're looking for people that can do 3 hours a week, once a week, and commit to 6 months.
And I presume, because we've heard about, how many roles did you say we had, Emma, across our volunteers?
About 50.
And so do people think beforehand, oh, I play the violin, I'd like to come and do that out on the ward, I've got a therapy dog, I want to do that. I presume there's some of those that are quite specific, or is it they look to volunteer and then, as Chris described earlier, some of that matching what's best for the individual, best for the organisation?
Some people have got quite a specific idea. I mean, some people might really be, into gardening and want to come and volunteer at Horatio's garden, for example, or exactly like you say with the therapy dogs. We don't particularly have volunteer musicians as such because our musicians are actually professional musicians that go around the wards. But yeah, some people are very much wanting patient-facing volunteering. Some people are perhaps a little bit more happy to be in a more sort of background support role. But by coming along to the recruitment event, that's when we go through all the different roles and tell you what they're like, and then people can sort of express a preference for one or the other.
And in September, when that window opens, where do people look? Which website will that be on?
It's if you go to the Sheffield Teaching Hospitals website, one of the options along the top is volunteer. So just click there and you'll be able to click through to register for the recruitment event.
Amazing. Right, a few messages because the email's been lighting up. So Mahmood, our chair, he's messaged saying, love to give a shout out to all our volunteers. We are blessed at STH to have 389 amazing volunteers. Thank you for all that you do, and thank you to you, Emma, Chris and team, for the work that you do coordinating all of those. So thank you. And then we've had a number of our volunteers messaging in. So a couple, let me just find those now on the email. So Gary, who's one of the volunteers that does his radio show with his wife and daughter Jane and Eleanor, he says, thanks to Emma and Chris and all the team at Volunteer Services for organising the volunteer celebration last night. Great venue, lovely food, compliments to the chef and friendly staff, and the fun and games. There was a fantastic quiz and bingo, plus to meet staff from across STH. Chris Morley was there as chief nurse. And then another one that we've got in is from Steve, also a volunteer on Sheffield Hospital Radio. He's saying he's just listening while he's doing prep for his Monday's Cosmic Experience. I think that's 6 till 8 on a Monday. Tell me if I've got that wrong, Steve. Can we pass on all our love and respect to Emma, Chris, the team, and all the STH volunteers from Hospital Radio. You all do a fantastic work, and sure and absolutely correct that all the patients appreciate it too. And he says if it wasn't for Emma being a champion for Hospital Radio in Sheffield, we wouldn't still be on air today celebrating 50 years. It's our 50th anniversary this year of broadcasting, so a massive virtual hug to you, Emma. And then our final one, which is from another volunteer, and this is from Annie. So thank you for your message. Annie, who says she's glad I'm wearing my sparkly jacket. It is. It's very hot in the studio in my sparkly jacket. And she's loving the music today. That's down to Chris and Emma, who've helped pick me the songs. And she said, could we play Wonderful World? So we're going to play that for her and say that's for all our lovely volunteers and the amazing staff at STH. And she says, again, a special thanks to Emma, Chris, and all the volunteering team for everything you do. Loads of love and support for you too. So thank you. We wouldn't have our volunteers if it weren't for you, Chris and Emma. And let's play some of that. It's What a Wonderful World. Well, what have we got next week? Well, would you believe it that next week is my anniversary? It's my 1-year show. So I've got an extra special guest next week. It's Kirsten Major, our Chief Executive, is on my show next week. So make sure to tune in for that. But look out for my shows coming up. I've got the Smoking Cessation Team, Sustainability, Education and Training, Sheba, the Nurse Director in South Yorkshire Regional Services, the Lung Cancer Screening Team. I've also got the Sexual Health Team, Stereotactic Radiosurgery, Podiatry. So check out the socials for that. If you want to listen to today's show again or any other shows that I've had before, remember you can go on Facebook and check out the reels. That would be brilliant. But Chris, Emma, I mean, I've never had so much love for guests on the show. I mean, how's that feel from your perspective? You're clearly very highly valued.
Oh, it's been really good fun to be here and really nice to hear from everyone. And thanks so much for having us, Michael.
Yeah, thanks for having us. We've really enjoyed it.
And any final thoughts, kind of any final messages out to our volunteers that you wanted to pass on? They clearly do a fantastic job, and it's come across just how much you value them, but any kind of final words of wisdom for them?
Just keep doing what you're doing. It's amazing.
Yeah, thank you for everything. Each and every day you blow us away with what you do. Thank you.
Brilliant. Well, thank you all. In the meantime, have a fantastic week wherever you are across our acute and community services, whether you are a member of staff, a patient, or somebody just listening out in the community. I really appreciate you listening in, and I'll listen to you all again next week. Here's some Blur taking us up to the news.